Ragna is the Black Beast.
Oh, nope, that took a different turn.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to part 2 of us trying to learn about the BlazBlue's story, and hopefully not fumbling and crashing at the end. Because I believe we spent like an hour or so learning about just the backstory. We haven't even got to the first game yet. I can only assume that things are going to get even crazier from here. But of course, if you guys didn't see part 1, I should have a link to the playlist down in the description, as well as at the very top a link to the original video, which you guys should definitely go and support if you haven't already.
Ragna heads into Kagutsuchi and makes his way towards the cauldron. He runs into Arachne, who is now a slimy monster obsessed with finding the Azure, so Ragna's mere presence draws him in. Ragna defeats him, but before he can kill the beast, Lychee appears and begs him to stop. She's been living in Kagutsuchi for several years.
Oh, wait. Maybe Arachne is drawn to Ragna because of his arm? That's literally a grimoire now at this point. Yeah. And if I recall correctly, he can't spend too much time near anybody, or else it literally consumes their soul or something like that. Which is unfortunate. Poor Ragna.
Years now, working as a doctor at a small local clinic, trying to track Arachne down and find a way to return him to normal. Meanwhile, back at NOL headquarters, Noel, now working as Jin's assistant, brings him a report that says Ragna the Blood Edge is reported to be heading towards Kagutsuchi. As soon as Jin hears this name, something in him snaps. He starts cackling like a madman and abandons his post to head to Kagutsuchi in the hopes of finding his brother and killing him once and for all. But upon arriving in Kagutsuchi, all he finds is a ninja by the name of Bang Shishigami. Bang was one of the top disciples of Tenjo, the leader of Ikaruga, and he even witnessed Jin killing his master right in front of his eyes.
Ooh, yikes. Did not see that connection coming. But Jin most certainly is not the happy-go-lucky rival.
No.
Not at all.
Bang wants nothing more than to make Jin pay, but his master told him to reject hate and embrace love and justice and to practice forgiveness. And Bang has carried that message with him to Kagutsuchi, where he watches over and protects the refugees from Ikaruga.
Good for Bang.
He's also kind of a goof and is constantly embarrassing himself, but the people still love him for keeping their spirits high and protecting them however he can.
Look, just judging from his astral finisher, yeah, that makes sense. This man is, he's very intense, but like he's also so lovable, despite all the mistakes that he makes. At least that's what I would imagine his character would be in the series.
I imagine him kind of like Kanji from P4.
Oh my god. Why would you compare him to Kanji? Is he gonna be my favorite character by the end of this? No! Oh god.
Because he's kind of just a softie, but he looks all big and tough.
Okay, you know, with that sort of comparison, I could see it. Yeah. Oh, now you piqued my interest in this character. How dare you?
So Bang decides to let Jin go, who continues on his way towards the cauldron, knowing that Ragna will be heading there as well. The last character to head towards Kagutsuchi is Noel herself. She's been tasked by the NOL with bringing Jin back, and she's being accompanied by Hazuma, the captain of the NOL's intelligence department.
Bruh.
And yes, he's exactly who you think he is, but let's put a pin in that for now. As soon as she arrives in Kagutsuchi, Noel is immediately attacked by Carl. You remember Carl?
Yeah.
Oh.
The kid who went to the NOL Academy? Well, he left the school and ended up becoming a vigilante.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
What the hell, Carl? Also, his colors in-game are not as eye-piercing as the ones that we saw for the splash art, so honestly,
Definitely.
I feel like this is better.
Much better.
I don't mind this, yeah.
He still looks like a little shit, though.
I know that there's a gang that likes Carl, and that there's a gang that hates Carl. Is there any in-between? I don't know, just judging from the comments, I don't think there is.
People for the NOL. And Carl, well, life has not been good to Carl. He's walking around with a giant mechanical doll, Nirvana, which is another one of the Nox Nectauruses. Nox Nectauri? Not important. What is important, though, is that he doesn't call this puppet Nirvana. He calls it Sister.
Yep.
Why is that? Well, that's because it is his sister. Yeah, Carl's full name is Carl Clover, and he is the son of Aurelius Clover, And his father put his sister Ada's soul into Nirvana. Carl became a vigilante specifically to hunt down Ragna because Ragna is in possession of the Azure Grimoire, and since the Azure has the power to reshape reality, Carl hopes he can use it to return his sister to normal.
Whoa. I feel like this is a monkey's paw situation. That sounds way too good to be true. Oh, and if any of you are wondering why, this is a blind reaction, how do they know this? Well, we took a look at the character designs and gave our opinions on them before learning anything about them. And I did notice that their names were similar. They shared the same last name between Relius and Carl, so.
He questions Noelle about Ragna's whereabouts, and when she doesn't answer, he gets violent. Noelle is able to defeat him thanks to her own Nox Nictoris, and Noelle and Hazma head towards the cauldron as well. I also want to point out that after this battle, Carl is healed up by Lychee, who reminds him of his sister Ada, and he also meets Bang, who provides Carl with some positive reinforcement.
Your sister Ada looked similar to Lychee? Ah, damn! I need to meet her.
Interesting.
Well, maybe it's not just the looks, it's just the big sisterly vibe, probably.
And support, something Carl has probably never experienced in his life. At the NOL base above the cauldron, Ragna and Jin meet, and Jin is overpowered with bloodlust. They battle, and Ragna comes out on top, knocking Jin out. Even though Ragna knows they have unfinished business, the cauldron has to be dealt with first. However, as he makes his way deeper and deeper down to the building, he senses an incredible power. Someone is watching and waiting for him, and Ragna comes face to face with Hakumen.
How did you survive?
Hakumen was pulled out of the boundary by Kokonoe, who needed his power for a mission, but Hakumen had other plans. He wanted to head towards the cauldron because he had one goal pushing him forward. Kill Ragna the Blood Edge.
Wait, what? How did this happen? Because I believe last time we saw Hakumen, he had jumped onto Terami and then dragged him back down into the boundary, but Kokonoe dragged it back up, and I guess Terami somehow got to him? Or maybe like a bit of Terami's soul is inside of Hakumen now.
Now, why would Hakumen want to kill Ragna? Ragna wasn't even born until about 80 years after he fell into the boundary. He wouldn't even know who this guy was. Well, I'll get back to that later. Sorry, I know that's a whole lot, I'll get back to it later, but I promise I will return to them. Hakumen is too much for Ragna, and he's about to defeat him, but Ragna then taps into the Azure Grimoire and becomes strong enough to match Hakumen. But before the fight can end, Kokonoe locates Hakumen and teleports him back to Sector 7. With that, Ragna finally arrives at the cauldron, but he finds he's too late. He was trying to make it there in time to stop the cauldron from creating a Morokumo unit. Okay, remember what a prime field device was? A robot designed to explore the boundary? Well, a Morokumo unit is a prime field device that is designed to not just explore the boundary, but also for combat. Ragna had already destroyed a few other ones at the previous cauldrons, but now he came face to face with their newest model, New 13. New 13 is obsessed with Ragna in a very creepy way. She acts like she loves him, but also acts like she wants the two of them to die together. Yeah, it's a little bit messed up.
Okay.
It sounds like a yandere.
You gotta have all the archetypes inside of your anime video game, okay? I honestly didn't expect New 13 to be this archetype, though, just judging from the design.
Yeah. No, me either. Hey, how did the yandere even come to be? Like, how's like most of the data is like I understand to an extent, but I don't get the yanderes.
Well, I believe the first one ever that showed up came from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Part 4, which is the part that you should know about. It's the crazy, noisy, bizarre town.
That is the best opening.
Yeah, it's really fun. And that character inspired another character in Hunter x Hunter. Ever since then, it sort of boomed in popularity and changed a little bit. Now, the sign of the yandere is like the pink hair girl, who's like the childhood friend. And
I mean, that one's just made Ariki's fault.
Yeah, honestly.
Because I know Yuno's the one who like really pushed it into mainstream. I think that's her name.
I have no idea. Why do we like yandere so much? I guess it's just different from all the other ones, and it's one of those situations where it's like the hot goth GF with daddy issues, and then you're like, I can fix her. Yeah, maybe it's like that. I was never into them, though.
I've only read one story with a yandere that was tolerable. It was still a toxic as fuck relationship, but he was more grounded than most you see in anime. I don't know.
Most other yanderes, it's like massive red flag. You should report them to the police, but for whatever reason, the main characters don't. And either they have a good reason or not, or like they just think that she's hot.
Extra disturbing for Ragna, she just happens to look a lot like his sister Saya. The two of them.
Oh my god, that just makes it so much worse. Yeah, well, we talked about this in part 1. It's like, oh, there's going to be a bunch of characters. It's like, oh, you have a little bit of Saya in you, and you look a little bit like Saya too. Yeah, it's going to go on and on.
Yep.
But like, why? Why is this the programming that was given to this unit? The robot gods specifically want to take out Ragna for some reason?
I mean, probably.
Ragna's too powerful. The power contained within his right arm will destroy the universe. We must stop him.
Fight, and Ragna is left bleeding out, sliced up, and close to death. Nu impales Ragna, and suddenly the two of them start to merge together as they both fall into the cauldron, with an injured Jin jumping in right behind them. So...
Wait, what?
Yeah, the hero of the game died. Guess this story summary was quicker than I thought.
Hey, nice.
Okay, you all see the time code. You know this isn't over. So, what happened to Ragna? Well, remember how I said the boundary can connect different locations and different times? Well, Ragna, Nu, and Jin all get sent back 100 years to December 31st, 2099.
Oh, God.
And if
when
you're thinking that date sounds familiar, it's because that's the date the Black Beast emerged from the cauldron. That's
Damn.
Oh my god.
An unfortunate date to go back to.
I don't know if I mentioned this, but it was a thought that crossed my mind. Where, like, the Blood Edge that sacrificed himself to take out the Black Beast might have actually just been Ragna. Yeah. It creates a bit of, like, a paradox. Like, he got the name Blood Edge because of his future self in the past. He went back to the future, kind of.
Because Ragna is the Black Beast. Yes, the Black...
Oh. Nope, that took a different turn.
Excuse me?
That was the other direction.
Bro, my ankles just got broken. What the heck, man?
That's a good twist. I didn't see that coming.
I didn't see it either. I am pleasantly surprised. This is not following any of the writing conventions that I'm used to. Which is a breath of fresh air, honestly.
Yeah, true.
Black Beast is essentially the evolved form of the Azure Grimoire. Once it consumes enough souls, it will turn its wielder into a Black Beast. Although there is another way to make this happen. Have the Azure Grimoire merge with a Morokumo unit, which is why Nu 13 had this uncontrollable urge to join with Ragna, like it was her calling. So Ragna got sent back in time and became the Black Beast, but what happened in the present? Oh, not much. Just...
What about Jin?
The end of the world. Yeah, bear with me, folks, because it's about to get way crazier. In space, there was a satellite that housed another Nox Nictoris called Taki Mikazuchi, and this was a giant monster with unbelievable power, and the moment it woke up, it fired a blast down at the Earth, wiping Kagutsuchi from the map. Why did it do that? I'll get back to that later. Well, the rest of the world is okay, right? Not quite. You see, the master unit, for reasons that... I'm sorry, but again, I'll get back to later. Like, way...
I feel like he's doing it on purpose now. He's just teasing us.
Whoa, but I can only imagine how you try to figure out how to tell your story in the most succinct and easily understandable way possible, and that you know that you're gonna have to offload information near the end. So all you can do is just be like, if I explain it now, you're gonna get confused, so put a pin in it, we'll talk about it later. For almost everything. Oh my god. I've never seen like a story summary have to do anything quite like this, but I suppose it has to do with how BlazBlue is told. which forces Thorgi to do this.
The Master Unit did not want any of this to happen, so when Taki Mikazuchi destroys Kagetsuchi, the Master Unit just resets the timeline back to January 1st, 2100, the day right after the Black Beast appeared. And so begins the Great BlazBlue time loop. Yes, that's right, these 100 years kept repeating themselves over and over again, each time with small changes, but the end result always being the same. Ragna always becomes the Black Beast, Taki Mikazuchi always destroys Kagetsuchi, the timeline always gets reset. Because of this, it makes the story mode in the arcade mode of this game very unique, because every character has their own story mode with multiple endings, and all of them are technically canon, as each of them depict different runs through the time loop.
Right, that is kind of cool.
That is very cool indeed. It reminds me of Zeroscape.
Definitely.
I actually like this, but I'm also very curious as to how exactly we break free from this time loop. Do we have to figure out a way to make sure that Ragna doesn't fall into the cauldron and become the Black Beast? Or do the people 100 years ago have to figure out a better way to take down the Black Beast?
Now, before we go on, guess what? I'm finally going to start explaining some of those questions I left dangling.
Thank you.
Now that we know that Ragna is the Black Beast, a few puzzle pieces start to get filled in. Why did Jin cut off Ragna's arm when they were kids, and why does he still want to kill him so badly? Because of his sword. Yes, I mentioned that the Yukianaso was a Noxenic torch.
And the sword possessed Jin's mind and tried to make him kill Ragna. But that's probably because the sword was created to kill the Black Beast. I see. Okay.
Yeah.
And it was a weapon with souls inside of it, and a weapon made specifically to kill the Black Beast. So when the young Jin was given this sword, the souls inside of it overtook him and said, "Hey, is that guy who's going to become the Black Beast? Time to do the exact thing I was made to do." Same thing goes for Hakumen. He fought in the Dark War against the Black Beast, and he knew that Ragna was the Black Beast. So the moment he arrived in the present, he set out to kill Ragna before he transformed. But how does Hakumen know that Ragna is the Black Beast?
Right.
Well, I'll explain that right now, actually.
Thank you.
So I mentioned that Rachel Alucard was a bystander, someone who had to keep observing the world endlessly without interference. Well, this also means that she existed outside of our time. So she didn't get reset with every single time loop, meaning she had to keep witnessing the same 100 years repeating themselves over and over again. But on
oh my god.
I feel like you would go crazy at some point. That's a lot.
Yeah. This reminds me of, I believe it was called Endless 8 from the Haruhi Suzumiya anime, where there was a character exactly like this who had to experience all the redos over and over again. Thankfully, they weren't human, so it was bearable. But, and I mean, I guess in this case, she's also a vampire, so maybe she's just used to living for a very long time and seeing all this transpire, but
I mean,
it
even
still
if you're used to
sucks.
living for a long time, though, just seeing the same shit over and over again.
And having absolutely no means to change any of that, you can only watch and see it play out. Yeah, that would be very frustrating.
On the 299th reset, Jin jumped into the cauldron and traveled back in time as well, and Rachel found him and said, "Oh hey, this is different. Hey Jin, you want to kill Ragna, right? Well, going through the boundary kinda wrecked your entire body and you can't fight anymore. But my father just happens to be collecting artifacts that could possibly stop the Black Beast, including this insanely powerful Susanoo armor that just needs a soul inside of it to work. So, what do you say?" Yes, Hakumen is really Jin after going through the boundary and having his soul put into the Susanoo unit. And because he knows what will happen to his brother, that's why he's so dead set on killing him. But in Hakumen's story, when he confronts Jin, you actually see him feeling far more remorseful about than Jin did when he faced Ragna. So, I guess 100 years in the boundary really chilled him out. So,
you know, one would hope so. Being angry is so difficult to maintain for a very long amount of time. Unless there's, you know, something wrong with you inherently.
I feel like whenever I get angry, I get over it in a couple minutes.
Yeah, it's just so tiring to be angry all the time. The only people that I have seen be able to maintain it for like days upon days are those with certain conditions, whether that be mental or physical. So yeah, 100 years, that's kind of a lot of time. You have so many other problems to deal with. By that point, you'd forget about it.
Ragnar's Azure Grimoire causes him to merge with the Morokumo unit Nu 13. They become the Black Beast and get sent back in time. Then the satellite monster Taki Mikazuchi destroys the city of Kagetsuchi, and the Master Unit resets the universe back to right after the Black Beast appeared 100 years ago. Eventually, over the course of all these loops with minor changes happening, Jin ends up going back in time as well and joins with the Susanoo unit to become Hakumen, which also locks Hakumen into the time loop, making him a constant that appears in every single loop as well. And I'm really wishing at this point that I didn't use this clip from The Good Place during our King of Fighters retrospective, because it fits so much better right now.
My brain is melting. How can events happen before the ones that happened before?
But that raises the question, what caused this time loop to finally break? That would be Noel. Yes, after hundreds and hundreds of resets,
should have guessed.
Eventually the stars aligned just right and Noel found her way to the cauldron before Ragna. She came face to face with Nu 13 and Noel lost all control of her body, speaking mechanically and engaging Nu 13 in combat. But the Morokumo unit overpowered her and she was about to kill Noel when Ragna jumped in and saved her. Noel had never seen Ragna in person before, but something about him felt familiar. Ragna fought Nu again, lost, and fell into the boundaries.
Is he gonna be both of them?
Both of who?
The Black Beast and the other guy.
Oh, and also Blood Edge at the same time? We're already doing time loop and time shenanigans with variations to them, so I wouldn't be surprised if we did the double twist and we're like, oh yeah, you actually guessed correctly, but just not in the way that you thought it would happen.
We'll see,
and,
we'll see.
And also at this point, Noel just going into like robot speak and babbling a bunch of that numerical nonsense makes me think of maybe she always was a robot unit, but like she was disguised as a human somehow and was placed here long ago. How's that going to tie back in? Because we do know of the other character, which is the robot girl that looks exactly like Noel. So maybe that's her true form.
All over again. But this time,
sense.
Noel ran in and grabbed Ragna, pulling him back up and saving him. Rachel then appears and says, oh, thank God it finally happened. About freaking time. Ragna finally didn't turn to the Black Beast and the time loop is finally done. Well, almost. There was still the little matter of the giant satellite monster that wanted to destroy Kagetsuchi, which would cause the Master Unit to rewind time again. But Rachel had waited for a millennia to see Ragna not turn to the Black Beast.
So she's got a plan,
She wasn't
right?
going to let it all get reset again.
Thank
so
goodness.
she called upon the Tsukuyomi unit. Yeah, remember that giant impenetrable shield that guards the Master Unit? Well, I guess as a bystander, Rachel just has access to that thing in a break glass in case the universe is about to be destroyed case. So Rachel summons out the Tsukuyomi unit to guard Kagetsuchi from the space blast, saving the city, and finally ending the time loop. So, that was it. They finally managed to break the loop. Ragna was saved. Nu 13 was defeated and cast into the boundary. Everything was taken care of. Except for... There he is.
Hey. Yep. But this makes me wonder then, because the Black Beast technically still did appear in the past, but if Ragna didn't go back to become the Black Beast, then how does that work out? Would a Black Beast never appear in history? Or does it still appear, but it's just works in a different timeline?
It depends on how they do time travel.
How are we going to explain our time travel? I don't think time travel is going to be like a main thing for the series that it focuses on. So maybe we never explain that. But yeah, just a thought. I mean, one of my favorite shows is Steins Gate, so I'm always about the whole like details behind the time travel.
Hazuma had been there watching and waiting the entire time. And guess what? You're never going to believe it. Prepare to be shocked. Hazuma is actually Yuki Terumi. Yes,
Impossible.
Hazuma was the new artificial body that Relius Clover made for Terumi. and he had wormed his way into the NOL to not just manipulate events behind the scenes, which, again, I'll get back to later, but also because he knew that it could get him into this exact spot. You see, Teremy also existed outside of reason just like Rachel. So whenever the time loop began, he got sent back to his old body, being forced to relive everything over and over again. But he was manipulating events ever slightly to try and get everything to line up just right.
Oh, so that's why Noel ended up here. I was trying to wonder, like, why are there variations to the timeline? If it's not something that our vampire girl was doing, then it had to be somebody else, so yeah. I guess it makes sense that it's Teremy here, trying to manipulate the situation.
Now, okay, what I'm about to explain to you is the most complicated thing about BlazBlue.
Oh my god.
Considering that I just explained a time loop, that's saying something. You remember how I said in Japanese Rachel was referred to as a bystander, but in English they translated that to an observer? But
Yeah.
I wasn't going to call her that because there was another thing in the game called Observer that was way more important. Yeah, here we go. It's time to talk about observing. Observing is an ability in the BlazBlue universe where, to put it as simply as possible, you can essentially pull into reality something that doesn't exist. Yeah, buckle
What?
up, folks, it's about to get weird. People with the power to observe, in other words, observers, can see different possibilities, and they can then observe that possibility and bring it into reality. The process of doing this is called a
What?
phenomena intervention, and it can be something as simple as seeing someone down the street and saying, they should be standing right next to me instead. And then you observe the possibility where they're next to you, and then they just teleport down the street. Remember when Hakumen was fighting Ragna and suddenly he teleported back to Sector 7? That's because Kokonoi observed him being back. But it can also be something as big and grand as creating something totally new out of nothing, or manipulating an entire location and everyone within it. Essentially, it's god powers, which makes sense as it's basically what the Master Unit does to control the universe. And you want to know the
What the heck? So essentially, if you see something and you believe in it enough, that thing becomes real.
To be honest, that's some of my favorite plot device. Like, if you're going to make an arbitrary plot device like that, that one at least has interesting logic to run off of. You can do some fun stuff with, like, power of belief made real type shit. That's the whole premise of, like, 2B Hero X's power system that I've been watching right now, which is really cool. Basically, the hero's powers are what the public believes them to be, but they're held to, like, so much more to that. It's been real good.
Oh, that's really cool, actually. We bestow this power upon you because we believe in you.
It has a lot of downsides to it, though, because, like, Nice, which is the one that the first few episodes focus on, he's supposed to be, like, the perfect hero. So he's got, like, flight and, like, a bunch of, like, that perfect, like, image for a superhero.
Superman, yeah.
But he also has, like, intense OCD because of it. And he got out better than some of the others. There's one guy who his, like, thing is to stand tall and, like, never bend. And that becomes quite literal for him.
He can't bend his body to sit down and take a shit. No!
And then there's a literal clip of that.
Oh no! That was just a wild guess. But okay.
Yeah.
So they go that far. Damn, poor guy.
Yeah. He wasn't too upset when he lost his powers.
I think of orcs from 40k who basically had the same power. They're not really like traditional orcs in that sense.
Oh yeah, I remember hearing about them before.
They're basically mold, essentially, a fungi. But they have this power that if enough of them believe in something enough, that thing will become reality. The hard part is they're kind of stupid and they don't really work well together. So it's hard to get a lot of them to believe in the same thing. But if you can convince them that, like, say, you're invincible, they won't be able to do anything to you. And on the other side, if they believe that painting their vehicles red makes it go faster, it will go faster and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's 100% like a convenient plot device, but it's one of the more interesting ones that you could actually do some cool shit with.
For sure. It creates an infinite number of possibilities for situations to happen because of some sort of mechanic like this being in your universe.
And I feel like it's dependent more so on your characters. And so there's actually like a little bit of layering and intrigue to that.
But it certainly has to be a power that you need to really set up the rules for and have some sort of limit to. Because, you know, the reason why the orcs haven't taken over the 40k universe is because they're too dumb to do so. And that's their main thing. But
it has to have a drawback to go with it.
Yeah. It's just way too good of a power. Here, you have to observe something. But like, how does that observation happen? Is it like a separate timeline where this is a possibility of something happening and you happen to see it? And then you believe in it and so it becomes real? Is that what's going on here? Don't know. Maybe it's never explained, as we said. But a cool power, regardless.
Yeah.
The craziest part of this is actually based on real theoretical science.
Oh my god.
Yes, I do realize I just said real theoretical, but I didn't know a better way of putting it. About a decade ago, I watched a documentary on the many worlds theory that was about how scientists use quantum mechanics to explain multiple realities. And as I was playing through these games, it suddenly clicked with me. Oh wait, this is the exact thing they're talking about. It's way too complicated for someone like me to explain, but essentially it involves sending out electrons to various locations, meaning they did exist at different spots all at once. But they would only appear wherever the scientist observed them. The simpler way of explaining this is Schrodinger's cat, which is an old
god. No, not the cat! No, I don't want to see it anymore, please!
I think we called that the first part, didn't we?
I don't know which video that we talked about it in, but yeah. If you're savvy to the sci-fi genre and you just love playing all the games or watching all the media, everything is going to eventually mention Schrodinger's cat. Well, I mean, we both played Zero Escape, so yep, it's there.
It's inevitable.
Mandela Effect might get a mention here too, a classic. I can see why this concept is so popularly used, because it's really cool.
Yeah,
I don't mind it. It's just, you see it so much.
It's a really cool theory, and it can have really cool applications in sci-fi. I think people like us who are more genre savvy and have seen a lot, it's just used a lot. It's a little redundant, and oftentimes they misunderstand the theory.
Oh, yeah. Like the prisoner's dilemma, the classic one to misunderstand.
That one's the same too, yeah. Same. The amount of times you hear someone like reference Schrodinger's cat to something entirely unrelated to it. No, please.
You gotta throw it in there to make your sci-fi story legit, all right? It's sci-fi 101.
Yeah.
Experiment that says that a cat is in a box with poison.
Poor cat.
And you don't know if that poison has killed the cat until you open the box up and look. Meaning the cat is both alive and dead until you observe it. And I think Maury P., the creator of BlazBlue, knew about these theories and based observing around it. Because as I said, Schrodinger's cat is the most famous example of this. And who is one of the biggest observers in BlazBlue? Kokonoi. What is Kokonoi? A cat. Could be a coincidence, but that's a hell of a coincidence. Now I know that observing sounds far too overpowered, but there are some drawbacks to it. For starters, as you can probably guess, what you can and cannot observe all depends on how strong your power as an observer is. So it's not like if you gain the power to observe, then you can just control time and space. No, if you have small observer powers, then you'll barely be able to do anything with it. Also, once you observe something into reality, then you have to keep observing it or else it will return to the way it was. Unless you're just a super high and mighty all-powerful observer, then you essentially have the reality stone and you can reshape the world however you want. So, what does this have to do with anything? Well, as you've noticed from Relius and Arachne, when people fall into the boundary, it can change them. So, when Noelle leaned over the cauldron and looked in to grab Ragna,
she gained the powers
stared
of
directly
observing
into the boundary itself. And this gave her the eyes of the Azure, making her the successor of the Azure. What the heck does that mean? It means she was now an observer, and a very high-level observer at that. But she couldn't control it just yet. And knowing this is what happened, that's when Hazama stepped out and said, "Hey, Noelle, look at me."
Bitch.
Yes, Hazama's entire plan all along was to get Noelle into this exact spot where she could gain the eyes of the Azure, then have her use her new observation powers on him, because Teremi was still just a spirit struggling to hold on to this world, needing the body of Hazama to keep him alive and unable to access any of his powers. But the moment that Noelle looked at him, her new eyes...
Oh, and then it confirmed his existence. Oh, God. What a convoluted plan. I guess it worked, but it went through so many loopholes. It was nigh impossible to happen, but it did. So good for you, Teremi.
saw the spirit of Teremi inside of Hazama, and thereby she observed his true self, returning him back to his original powers. Hazama then fled, ready to start the next phase of his plan, and that is where the first game ends.
Dang.
Yes, this was all a story about breaking an endless time loop by having Noelle gain the eyes of the Azure and resurrecting Teremi's power. And I know that sounds like an insanely complicated series of events that all had to happen for Teremi's plan to work, but you have to remember, this timeline looped hundreds upon hundreds of times. Yes, it's a crazy plan, which is why it took so many tries for it to actually work. Also, you might be looking at the title of this game wondering, BlazBlue Calamity Trigger? What's a Calamity Trigger? Calamity Trigger was the event of Noelle gaining the eyes of the Azure. It's called a trigger because by breaking the time loop and by granting her the power to see all possibilities, it opened up a nearly infinite number of possible realities for the future to follow. And this sea of new possibilities that was formed was known as the Continuum Shift, which is the title of the next game.
Yeah.
Also, in case anyone is wondering what the heck a BlazBlue is, it's just another name for the Azure Grimoire. Yeah, remember how I said everything in this game has like 4 or 5 different names? There you go. So, that brings us to the second game. But before we can begin that, there's one other big nutty thing in BlazBlue's backstory that I haven't talked about yet, because it would have made 0 sense to you if you didn't know what observing was. Long ago, before all the stuff with Relius and the Black Beast and the Six Heroes, back before any of that, mankind, aware of what the Master Unit was, attempted to create their own robot god. This was known as the Takamagahara system, which was presided over by 3 different AI units. The Takamagahara system also had the power to observe, and it used these powers to basically steer humankind, controlling their destinies. However,
now this is the backyard. Made by mankind to compute and control the universe. And I'm gonna assume this is what leads into the creation of Noelle.
The Takamagahara's observing powers were nothing compared to the Master Unit.
That would
so
make
if
sense.
the Master Unit wanted to, it could overrule anything the Takamagahara system did. And the Takamagahara system didn't like that. So fake Robot God decided it wanted to kill real Robot God.
Damn.
So they freed Yuki Teremi from the boundary because thanks to him having been one of the original deities from within the boundary, he was immune to phenomena interventions, meaning the Master Unit wouldn't be able to stop him. Takamagahara was also the one who kept commanding Taki Mikazuchi to fire on Kagetsuchi because they knew it would cause the Master Unit to reset the universe, which is what they wanted to happen again and again until they got the exact turnout they wanted.
This is really messed up. We're basically just pawns in this game between 2 super AI computers.
Yeah.
One that has been controlling everything since the beginning, and one that wants to be the one to control everything. So they then release this necessary evil onto the world that we have to deal with. Are you kidding me?
So okay, just to recap that. The Takamagahara brought back Teremi to help them destroy the Master Unit, and they kept destroying Kagetsuchi because they knew it would force the Master Unit to restart the time loop, where they would then manipulate events to try and get different results. But when Noelle saved Ragna, Rachel knew the Master Unit wanted to keep him alive, so Rachel caused the giant shield Tsukuyomi to protect the city. So Takamagahara still didn't like these events, but Teremi, their little chaos agent down on Earth, was very happy with these events because it allowed him to use Noelle to gain his powers back. Which lets us know that even though both Teremi and Takamagahara want the Master Unit destroyed, they both still probably have their own plans. God, can you believe we're only on the second game? In fact, speaking of that, we're awfully far into this video right now, so I just wanted to say, if you're still watching, then thank you. That means a lot to me. A whole lot of work went into this video, as you can probably tell. And if you're still with me, then I can only assume that you're enjoying the video in some way, so maybe leave a like, leave a comment. That's the kind of stuff that lets YouTube know to promote these videos around, and I awfully would appreciate it. In fact, tell you what, everyone just go into the comments right now and just tell me, how confused are you at this point? Have I lost you? Do you still get it? Is this all just pure nonsense and you just enjoy having it on in the background?
Actually, you know, as convoluted as it is, I can still follow the story. Plus, there's plenty of story beats that we have technically seen in other series before, just used in a very unique way. So at the very least, it's not foreign, but I can understand anybody who's new to sci-fi. Yeah.
If you don't have a lot of time travel series under your belt, I can see it.
Yeah.
It's nowhere near as convoluted as the loop from VLR.
Oh, God. My favorite thing is watching Let's Players get to that point and like trying to sit there and understand
there for like a whole minute trying
what
to
is going on.
In.
Yeah.
Just pure nonsense and you just enjoy having it on in the background, some weird ASMR. Go ahead and let me know all that in the comments down below. Also, going to take a quick second right now just to say, if you want to support this channel even further, then we do now have a Patreon where you can go to get early looks at videos, and you can find all that in the description down below. But back to the video. Okay, let's actually start the next story. Picking up right after the events of the last game, Noelle is tagging along with Ragna, but Ragna tells her to get lost.
Why?
The two of them go their own separate ways, only for Ragna to get attacked by Carl. He beats Carl, but Nirvana stabs Ragna, causing him to fall down to the bottom of the hierarchical city, where he lands in the Kaka village. The Kaka clan are a group of cat-like beastkin who were all cloned from Jubei during the Dark War to fight against the Black Beast. But they didn't quite turn out as good as Jubei, so now they all just kind of chill out here in Kagatsuchi. Ragna is saved by the protector of the Kaka clan, Tao Kaka, who Ragna actually met and bought food for in the last game, but didn't really fit into my story summary, so I left it out. But as unlikely of a pair as they are, over the course of these games, Ragna and Tao would actually become friends, as Ragna enjoys Tao's company, and Tao thinks Ragna is a good guy who buys her food. Ragna leaves after he recovers, and runs into
I mean, you don't bite the hand that feeds you. Tao Kaka understands that.
Small child who also needs food. A lot of hungry people in these games. Ragna buys the kid food and learns there's something strange about them. This is Platinum the Trinity, and they are actually 3 souls in one. Their body contains the soul of Cinna, a soft-spoken young boy, and Luna, a foul-mouthed young girl. And the two of them carry around another Nox Nictoris, Mukorin. And within Mukorin is the 3rd soul belonging to Tranny Glassfield of the 6 heroes.
There it is.
Yes, before being killed, Tranny sent her...
I mean, yeah, the Trinity plus the whole look, too, was very similar. It's just she was a little too old to be the magical girl, so... Her
soul into her Nox Nictoris, which came into the possession of Luna and Cinna. Platinum was trained by Jubei to use the Nox Nictoris, and Jubei left them with the important task of heading to Kagatsuchi and finding Bang Shishigami. Speaking of Bang, he's been busy. He meets back up with Jin again after Ragna defeated him and helps him recover, because even if he despises Jin, Bang will always help someone in need. He then finds Carl and again gets a nice bonding moment with him as he helps him recover as well. Then Platinum finds Bang, and Tranny Glassfield is able to temporarily take over Platinum's body and tells Bang that his true enemy isn't Jin, it's the NOL itself. Someone is working behind the scenes of the NOL, and they orchestrated the Ikarga Civil War that led to his master's death. But his master's son is still alive, and they can bring about the revival of his clan, and they can lead this land to a bright future. But in order for that to happen, Bang must head back to Ikarga. Carl, on the other hand, isn't getting such good news. He follows Bang for a bit, but then splits off to hunt down his father, Aurelius. He runs into Lychee, who, again, reminds him of his sister, and shows that she does care about Carl, and Carl, for probably the first time in his entire life, gets a moment to actually cry over all the horrible crap that's happened to him.
That should have been me! Actually, well...
Damn you, Carl!
Damn you, Carl! How could you do this to me? You betrayed all of mankind!
Damn, poor Carl. I mean, I can't like him too much because he's a puppet fighter, but I do feel bad for the kid. Carl,
That's so real, Thorgi. That's so real. Like, I love Zato as a character, but man, I ain't playing him. And I hate fighting him.
then finds his father, who now has his own giant puppet. This is Relius's own version of a Nox Nictoris called Ignis. Fun fact, Ignis was also the name of Carl's mom and Relius's wife. Wow, that's a weird coincidence, huh?
Right.
Yes,
Yeah,
it's
very.
exactly what you think it is. Relius is just the worst. Relius beats Carl and tells him that if he truly wants to save his sister, then he must become like him. He must come to Ikarga and learn how to truly see humans as nothing more than tools for his experiments. Only then will his mind expand enough to learn Relius's secrets.
Carl, please
Jumping back to
don't.
Jin, after he recovers from his injuries, he finds that he can no longer use his sword. For some reason, it's not responding to him. He even runs into Ragna and challenges him again, but Ragna now easily stomps him down. Through these various battles, Jin learns that he's lost his powers because the Nox Nictoris had been controlling him this entire time. But now Jin was starting to get stronger. He was starting to rebel against the sword Yukianasa. So now if he wanted his powers back, he had to become stronger than the sword and be the one to control it.
That's interesting, actually. Like,
Mhm.
you lose power because you became too strong to be controlled by the sword anymore. It's a neat way to reset a character without having some sort of reason for them to lose all their powers. They are actually advancing, but because of that
Honestly,
advancement, they lose their powers.
That happens in Kumadesu Canonica.
Oh.
The main character gets so strong that she ends up able to evolve out of the system, but
Mhm.
when she loses the system, she's technically a god, but she's learned all of her powers through the system, so without it, she basically has to relearn how to use her powers
no.
entirely.
This was going to be hard for Jin though, because remember how Noelle was sent to retrieve Jin in the last game? Well, since she didn't come back, now Jin is a wanted man, and the rest of the NOL has been ordered to kill him on sight.
Yikes.
And who was leading this hunt for Jin? Why, his old childhood friend Tsubaki. Yeah, Tsubaki loved Jin, she respected him and wanted to be by his side. But she was also raised thinking that the NOL was always right and she shouldn't question them. So
Oh,
when
no.
Hazama returns to the NOL headquarters after the last game and tells her that she has to hunt down and kill Jin and Noelle, she was tortured by this. But she knew she had no choice and she had to agree to it. Now, Tsubaki wasn't nearly as
Blind
strong
belief.
as Jin or Noelle, but luckily for her, her family had in their possession an ancient weapon, an Ars Armagus known as Izayoi. Izayoi not only grants Tsubaki a huge boost to her power, but it also has the ability to steal light, which means that she can encase her opponents in darkness, but the downside is that it steals the light from Tsubaki herself, meaning that by using the Izayoi, she's slowly making herself go blind. Also, the more that she uses it, the more
Well, damn.
unbalanced she begins to act.
I do not think this is a good weapon. I don't think
No.
the upsides justify the downsides. Thanks, family, but I don't want this.
However, that's not because of the Izayoi, that's because of something that I'll get to later. Tsubaki
Of
ends up
course.
fighting against Noelle, but can't bring herself to defeat her old friend and lets her go. After that, she ends up running into Hakumen, and the two of them form something of a bond with each other, because in Hakumen's timeline, back when he was still Jin, he and Tsubaki were even closer. But Tsubaki ended up dying in that timeline, and he's always cursed himself for not being able to save her. However, their bonding moment is cut short when Hazama arrives, and Hazama has been
Damn
busy.
you, Hazama.
He's been going around doing what he does best, torturing and manipulating. He was tempting Lychee with promises of ways to return Arachne to normal, using a mysterious cloaked associate named Phantom to seal and trap Rachel, and now he's showing Tsubaki's visions
Phantom?
from another life that she could have lived. One where she became Jin's assistant instead of Noelle, and everything was perfect. It was the exact life that she always wanted, causing Tsubaki to break down and curse Noelle, saying that all the horrible things that had happened to Jin were all her fault. Tsubaki
no.
goes off and she ends up fighting Jin, fully giving into the dark power of the Izayoi. Jin has to finally step up and overcome the influence of his sword, and with the life of his childhood friend on the line, Jin is able to look inside of himself, and on that day, his heart grew 3 times in size. Okay, more of like 10%. A little bit closer to 5. Yeah, Jin's still a total bastard, but at least now that wasn't the sword making that happen. That was all Jin. He was able to overpower the Yuki-Anasa, and he was now once again in control of his powers, and with these powers he was able to stop Tsubaki. So yes, Jin now no longer had Yuki-Anasa commanding him to kill his brother, meaning Jin could now finally begin his true mission of killing his brother. Yeah, remember how I said...
Well, at least he's determined. He's got one goal in mind and he's gonna get it done. You gotta admire that. Do we still have a good reason as to why we're doing this, though? Jin?
Probably not.
Nothing in BlazBlue could ever be because of one thing. Well, Jin didn't just have Yuki-Anasa manipulating him, he also had the power of order. Remember that thing from like an hour ago when I said Celica had the power of order and it was just something that the universe gave people to help balance itself and protect itself from threats? Well, there weren't many threats larger than the Black Beast. So Jin didn't just have the Yuki-Anasa whispering in his ear, he had also been chosen by the power of order to be the one to kill Ragna.
What the frick, man? Poor Ragna. The universe literally wants him dead. What? I didn't know nothing. It's super funny too, because we had assumed that Ragna was like the unhinged one. But judging from all the comments, apparently Ragna's the chillest dude. He's just in an unfortunate circumstance surrounded by unhinged people.
That's right. Jin had Kill Ragna playing in stereo his entire life. Both the devil and angel on his shoulders were firmly on team kill your brother.
No.
Now, it's been a while since we checked in on Kokonoi, and considering it's only been about 12 hours since the last game, she's been very busy. A while back, Tager had found in a destroyed cauldron another Murakumo unit, Lambda 11. Now, Lambda had a super rough life. She was tortured by her creators and was haunted by the memories of her creation until eventually she was shut down. And after hearing about how horrible Murakumo units are treated, it might shock you to learn that Relius Clover was the one who invented them. I know, huge twist, right? If there's something horrible...
So yeah, they weren't created by the machine god, created by humans to destroy the machine god more so.
...that happened in this universe and involves science, it was probably Relius Clover. So Kokonoi salvaged Lambda, but Murakumo units need a soul to function, and Lambda was basically just an empty shell at this point. But luckily, another Murakumo unit had just been dumped into the boundary with a fresh soul just sitting right there. So Kokonoi used her super science to reach into the boundary and just took out a sliver of New 13's soul and put it in Lambda. Because of this, Lambda was mostly a mindless, obedient robot working for Kokonoi, but every now and again, she got a brief flash of memories and feelings that she didn't understand. Oh, also Lambda 11 just happens to look a lot like Ragna and Jin's sister Saya, but at this point, if I bring up a Murakumo unit, just go ahead and assume that.
I was gonna say that, and you too have a little bit of Saya in you. Literally, this is literally Arya, but like the backyard creating all these different versions of her.
Also, remember Makoto, the squirrel girl who was friends with Tsubaki and Noelle? Yeah, well, she's actually been a double agent this whole time, working for Kokonoi, giving her info from the NOL. Moving over to Noelle, after facing off with Tsubaki, she realized that she had to stop Hazama. So, she made her way to the top of the NOL base where another cauldron was waiting. There, Hazama keeps pushing her buttons, mentally torturing her until Noelle eventually breaks. And that's when we learn the truth about Noelle. Her powers start fluctuating wildly. Her Nox Nictoris tries to restrain her, but it can't hold her back anymore. You see, turns out that Noelle was another Murakumo unit.
Yeah.
During the Karga Civil War, a Murakumo unit called Mu-12 was being developed in the city of Ibukiro. But its development was interrupted when the Takamagahara system caused the Taki Mikazuchi to fire down on the city, burning it to the ground. Mu-12 managed to survive though, and it's thought that thanks to the giant city-destroying attack causing her to be born, she was created with incredibly high power levels, but also had amnesia of who or what she was. And so, Mu-12 was adopted into a rich family, given the name Noelle, and now Hazma had broken Noelle's mind, causing her to revert to her original programming. He then shoves Noelle into the cauldron, not to place her into the boundary, but because cauldrons also have another function. Cauldrons act essentially as giant ovens that are used for baking up Morokumos, and Noelle had been taken out before she was done. So Ragna comes racing to stop Hazma, who, by the way, Ragna already knows is actually Yuki Terumi and is the guy who took his sister away when he was a kid and caused Jin to burn down their home and cut off his arm. So even if Noelle wasn't in danger, he'd still be after him. But Rachel had just gotten done telling Ragna that no matter what he does, he can't beat Hazma. It would just be impossible with how he was now. Ragna, being the anime protagonist that he is, doesn't listen when someone tells him that he can't win, and he charges into battle anyway.
Yeah, I mean, if you scream loud enough, eventually you'll be able to overcome anything. Although I don't think BlazBlue runs on those rules, unfortunately.
Only to immediately learn why he can't win.
I don't think so, asshole. You're the one who's gonna eat it. Restriction 666 released. Dimensional interface force field deployed.
Cool.
BlazBlue? That's quite a toy you got there, kiddo. How'd you do that? Sounded like Restriction 666 released. Deploying dimensional interface force field.
What? How did you? No way.
You can't copy me. That's trademarked.
Time for a taste of real power, boy. Code SOL. BlazBlue, activate!
Yes, it turns out that Yuki Terumi is the one who invented the BlazBlue, the Azure Grimoire that Ragna used for an arm. And Ragna's was the weak inferior model. Terumi's, on the other hand, was the top-of-the-line state-of-the-art model. But that wasn't the only big reveal. Terumi explains that the Azure Grimoire was basically a portable cauldron. Not just because it allowed access to the Azure inside the boundary, but also because, just like how cauldrons could create Morokumo units, the Azure Grimoire was designed to absorb souls specifically to create the Black Beast. Well, sort of. As I said, the Azure Grimoire was a failed model. It wasn't supposed to create the Black Beast. Much like the Azure Grimoire itself, the Black Beast was also a failed version of what Terumi was actually aiming for.
What were you after?
Kusanagi unit. You remember that from way back? Prime field devices were robots designed to explore the boundary. Morokumo units were prime field devices designed for combat. And Kusanagi units were Morokumos designed to kill the master unit. This is another reason why New 13 wanted to merge with Ragna. Morokumo units were designed to become Kusanagi units. So the Azure Grimoire was basically calling to her to make her whole, but because the Azure Grimoire was faulty, when she and Ragna merged, they didn't become a Kusanagi, they became a Black Beast. I know I'm repeating myself here a lot, but when you get into this many crazy plot points all at once, I feel like that's warranted.
But
after all this time, Terumi finally had the perfect Morokumo unit, and he had a giant cauldron sitting up here on top of the NOL base, which was absorbing the souls of everyone inside the building. With these souls it was gathering up from all the NOL agents, it was going to use them to turn Noelle into a Kusanagi. This was it. Ragna had to stop him, or all of existence was going to be destroyed. Ragna couldn't stop him.
Oh no!
Yeah, Rachel was right. Ragna couldn't beat Terumi. Ragna got stomped. Not only did Terumi have a better Azure Grimoire, he also was in possession of Ouroboros, another one of the Nox Nictoruses. Noelle then emerged from the...
I find it incredibly funny that you said it looked like an Ouroboros, and it's literally just called Ouroboros.
I mean, yeah, it looked like it.
Good character design.
Cauldron, now fully transformed into a Kusanagi, and Terumi ordered her to head into the boundary and kill the master unit. So yeah, things were looking bad. But then, as Terumi moved in to deliver the killing blow to Ragna, in jumped Lambda 11.
No!
Yeah, as I said, even if it was just a little bit, she did have a sliver of New 13's soul inside of her, meaning she did care about Ragna, even if it was in an obsessed stalker kind of way. So she jumps in and saves him, sacrificing her own life to do it. But as she sacrifices herself, she then merges with Ragna. However, unlike in the last game,
Oh my god. The amount of merging that's going on makes me think of Kingdom Hearts. Like, whose heart is in who, and who's a nobody? Who's a somebody?
Maybe that's just a telltale sign of a convoluted story. When people start merging and looking the same, and they're the same person except they're entirely unrelated, you know. And so, you know, you've stepped into a new realm of storytelling, and there's no going back.
I'm very intrigued to learn how exactly you storyboard something like that. I'm sure that you'd have to have everything planned out ahead of time, or else you too, as an author, would end up forgetting about it.
Opposite. I think most writers who write like this are very much seat of the pants writers, and that's why there's so much looping back and so much like this actually is what happened, even though if we portrayed it a little bit differently when it happened the first time, you know.
Yeah, like Mickey lost his shirt here, right, guys? Yeah.
This didn't cause Ragna to change into a black beast. No, you see, Kokonoi had equipped Lambda with something known as an idea engine, which is a machine that Kokonoi invented for the purpose of matching the power and countering a Nox Nictoris. Thanks to this idea engine merging with Ragna's Azure Grimoire,
oh my god, it's
Ragna
a power
didn't turn into a black beast. Instead, he went Super Saiyan. He gained a massive power-up and was able to stop Hazama, freed Rachel from her magical prison, and then dove into the boundary to find Mu 12. And he used the power of his grimoire to awaken Noelle and bring her back to her senses.
It's one hell of a Deus Ex Machina.
He did end up losing his arm in the process, though. Not the Azure Grimoire arm, no, the other real arm. Yeah, Ragna is now owned...
No! Ragna has no arms! No!
No, Ragna.
Oh, man.
2 for keeping his arms from being cut off. But aside from being down one arm, it looks like everything worked out. Noelle was now in control of her body again. Hazama had been defeated. Jin still wanted to kill Ragna and was still a total a-hole, but at least now he was in control of the Yuki Amasa again. Everybody won, right? Nope, turns out this was all according to Hazama's plans. Or Terami's plans. Oh god, I'm going to get those two mixed up at some point later on, aren't I? You see, even though both Terami and the Takamagahara wanted the Master Unit destroyed, Terami had additional plans that didn't involve him becoming slave to another giant robot god. However, Takamagahara had an impenetrable defense. It had 3 supercomputers that were constantly observing itself at all times to keep anyone from being able to enter it against their will. But when Ragna fought Mu 12, all 3 of the AIs turned all of their attention towards that fight. And that's when Terami snuck in and implanted a computer virus into the machine that wiped out all 3 of the AIs, leaving the giant satellite with near god-level observation powers completely unmanned. Terami then beamed down to visit the injured Ragna, Noelle, and Jin, and revealed that while all this was going on, he had been assembling his own Legion of Doom to help him out. There was Relius Clover, the mysterious phantom puppet that he had used to imprison Rachel, Lychee, who had joined him with the promises of returning Arachne back to normal, and Tsubaki, who had been completely overtaken by the dark magic that was corrupting her mind.
Yeah, I was wondering why. Like, we had referred to her as Tsubaki and her weapon as Izayoi, but in the splash art that we saw, her name was Tsubaki Izayoi, so I guess they just end up merging together, and that's just her name now?
I guess so.
By the way, in case you're wondering how Terami was able to plan all this without the Takamagahara system finding out about, it's because remember how I said the Izayoi could steal light? Yeah, that's the reason Terami needed Tsubaki. Stealing light doesn't just mean making things dark, it also means making it impossible to be seen, even by a god.
Observe.
So, Terami needed Tsubaki to use the Izayoi's power to block the view of even the omniscient machine god, and that's when Hazama could form these plans. Oh, and in addition to the rest of this rogues gallery that was joining Terami, there was one other character there, the Emperor of the NOL themselves, who just happens to look a lot like Ragna and Jin's sister, Saya.
Saya! Saya, what the hell?
Oh. I guess we finally have a character who doesn't look like Saya, they actually are Saya.
What? What the hell is going on? Who is this character? Are they a character that is in the roster? Imperator Librarius. I don't know. I don't recognize that name.
I don't recognize it, yeah.
But there was a character with purple hair that had like a hoop sort of weapon. I don't think it's her, but they look kind of similar.
Yeah.
Yes, after Teremi kidnapped Saya, he set her up to become the leader of the NOL. Why would he do that? Say it with me, everyone. We'll get to that later. By the way, this has been bugging me ever since I began these videos. We keep getting told all this time that Noelle and Nu and Lambda all look just like Saya.
Yeah.
And now we
It
finally
looks
get to
nothing
see
like
Saya, and am I the only one that doesn't see the resemblance? Like, at all? I don't know, maybe it's just me.
I agree, actually.
I
mean, they all have anime same face, so like, meh.
You can't use that as an identifier. You can't say that they're similar. Like, at least have the same hair color. The hair is usually the dead giveaway for anime characters. But
or at least like shape it similar, or like there's no consistent motifs between the three of them.
no, not at all. How do you see Saya in these girls? I think you just see Saya in any girl that you look at.
So, as the
girls are
game
Saya.
ends, everyone finds out that they have to leave for Ikarga. Ragnar, Noelle, Jin, and most of the other characters head there because that's where Saya and Teremi are head. Bang heads there because he finds out that the son of his master is there. Carl heads there not just to confront his father, but also to rescue Miss Lychee. Tal just kind of tags along with Ragnar, and I'm sorry, Tal fan, she's a great fun character, but this is the last time I'm going to be mentioning her in this video because she doesn't really play into the plot after this. Point is, everyone is now headed to Ikarga, and that leads us into the next game.
Although, that's fair. Like, Tao, plus her astral finish, is kind of like jokey, cutesy, funny. I think she's more so just the funny character in the series that people love, but doesn't really have any importance to the main plot, so. But yeah. Oh, hot damn. That's what we're going to call part 2. I don't know if this is going to be a 4-parter or a 3-parter, but like, there are so many twists and turns everywhere. It is kind of incredible. It might actually be the case where it's like, he's writing it off the impulse or whatever needs to happen happens. But I have seen comments about people saying that this is like a universe that he's been creating ever since he was in high school too. A universe where he can create any sort of story or game. So there were probably elements here that he thought of and then was like, I want to connect these in this way. And so it worked out in this sort of fashion. It's just interesting. It's very intriguing.
There's nothing wrong with writers who write, like, by the seat of their pants. They're just two types of writers.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I think especially when it comes to manga writers, a lot of them are like that because you don't know how long your series is going to be serialized for.
Definitely,
so you do have a basic idea of where you want it to go and where you want it to end. But in between there, you still have to figure it out. So, but all right, my dudes, that's going to be it from us today. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll catch you in the next one.
Bye-bye.